NYRAC is a group of residential real estate professionals in New York City
who are looking to change the way we do business.
NYRAC means honesty and integrity in our business.
Having a trusted partner.
Community.
Education, mentorship, and camaraderie.
Advocacy and accountability.
A collective voice.
And having a seat at the table.
I've been in residential real estate in New York City for a long time, and I have never felt a sense of community like I have with NYRAC.
I really feel the pulse of our community working together.
We provide an incredible network
that has helped me forge new relationships, as well as strengthen the existing relationships I have with agents.
We are colleagues that lift each other up and challenge each other to be better.
We're all individual business owners, and our collective voices need to be heard.
So what's next? It's time for you to get involved.
It is very important, and it will help to change our industry.
NYRAC is an organization created for agents by agents.
Together, we will elevate the status of the residential brokerage profession.
NYRAC is leading our industry into the new century of real estate.
So come join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Come join us. So now we want to welcome Bill Desifee from First Republic. He's the Regional Managing Director, and he's going to say a few words, and then we're going to get into our main event.
Well, thank you, Heather and Kathy, for the kind words. I hope I'm coming across okay on the transmission. But I just want to welcome you all here today. As we were mentioned before, we are the platinum sponsor, the original sponsor of NYRAC. We were approached by the team, Heather and Leonard and Tony and Kathy about the idea of putting together a sponsorship for this group. We jumped at it. So we've been involved now since the start, and we're really pleased to see how it's grown. It's been a great partnership, and the other sponsors mentioned, quite frankly, are also great partners in the business because we do a lot of work with the entire team. So I'm so glad to be part of this presentation. And I was asked to say a few words about what's going on in the banking world, particularly at First Republic. As we were introduced, the kind words talked about a relationship bank. First Republic is a relationship bank. We're here to help you as a broker, as an agent. We're here to help your clients with transactions. And I just want to be clear that we are in the business. We're open for business. We're competitive with rates. The world has changed, as we all know. We have gone to appraisals using desktop. We're doing virtual closings for a lot of folks in New York. For years, they're saying why these table closings have to exist. I think the world has changed going forward. I'd love to get Alan Perlowitz's view on that. But the world has changed, and we are changing with it. We're here. We're competitive with rates. Most banks, including ourselves, were busy for the last month trying to help out our clients that qualified for the SBA PPP program, the payroll protection program. That consumed a lot of time. We're coming through that. We're on the other end of that. Banks did their best they could to get money back into the community to help the business owners survive and get through this crisis. The one thing we don't know, and nobody knows at this point, is when we're going to emerge from this. We're all in dialogue about when will we get the economy started. I'm hearing a lot of companies want to get going. I know myself, I think we all want to get back out there, but it's going to take time. We have to protect our employees, and we have to be good to the community we live in. Just a few words. The purchase activity has been very slow, as I'm sure you all know. You'll tell me during the Q&A, I guess. But if you have an opportunity, we'll be quick to move with you. We've actually started closing loans quicker using virtual than we did the old way. So I guess we get some benefit out of all this. But again, I'm just pleased to say that we're here for you. We're here for NYRAC, and we're really pleased to be part of this interesting podcast or cast today about hearing from Barbara Corcoran. So Heather, I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you as always. We're looking forward to today's presentation. So thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. So we're getting ready to head into the main event where Leonard Steinberg will have a Q&A with Barbara Corcoran, and she's just joining us now. And so we want to give a really big shout out to Deanna Corey, who was the the ultimate extraordinaire person who secured Barbara for this event for us. So we owe her a huge thanks, and we are very excited to hear everything that Barbara has to say. So with that, Leonard, I will let you take it away.
I'm unmuted now. Hi, welcome everyone. And thank you so much for having us here with NYRAC. Barbara Corcoran is a living legend, and she visits us almost every single day in our living rooms. She needs no introduction. So without further ado, here we have a little video to just remind you one more time how amazing Barbara Corcoran, the guest of NYRAC's main event, is today.
Corcoran, founder of the Brokerage.
Welcome, Barbara Corcoran. Who's gonna be rich? Pipe down, little man. You're starting to act like Damon.
That was scary. I'm sorry. I'm petrified. Barbara, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us here today. We are thrilled to be with you. I'm personally even more excited because I started my real estate career with you almost 23 years ago. And we're just so very, very happy that you're with us here today. Thank you. I think we need sound for Barbara.
Sound was better on the introduction than I heard. It was just terrible on this side.
We have horrible sound issues today, but I think it's called a Z for sound.
I apologize for that.
No problem. Barbara, you live in New York City, and of course the city has been beaten up so badly during this tragedy. This is your hometown. How are you dealing with everything, and how are you personally and your family?
Well, my family is all healthy, and I've been here in New York from the beginning. But for me, honestly, Leonard, it reminds me of 9/11. Rather than seeing the tanks roll down Fifth Avenue back then, which was a shocking sight, I have across the street from my house the medical tents from Mount Sinai, and I see those glowing through the night, and it's very depressing. And I see the nurses running back and forth between the tents. It's just remarkable. But on another level, I also see it as an opportunity to grow my business. I knew immediately when the problem started that the business that I knew, the media business I had built, was never going to be the same. And I immediately really sat down and gave some very fast thought to what I was going to lose and how I was going to replace it. And I think I've gone out of my way to try to think of things that I can control, that I can change, versus focus on what I can't control, because you can't change it and it just leads to anxiety. And I guess that's the summation of what I've been feeling. I don't know if that made sense. Did that make any sense?
That made a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. You shattered the glass ceiling for women, especially in New York City, which was a very male-dominated world, especially in the real estate on the executive level. Mm-hmm. You have not run a brokerage now for almost 15 years. Do you miss us? Do you miss brokerage? Do you miss us agents at all?
That's an unfair question, I have to say. But you will like the answer. I don't think I have a day in my life where I don't miss my brokers, quite sincerely. I think I almost suffered a 5-year quiet depression when I sold the business. Just at a time when I should have been feeling like I was on top of the world, free as a bird, no responsibility, and could do whatever I wanted. What did I think about all the time? Oh, I wonder how Sharon Baum is. I wonder what Robbie Brown's doing. I wonder what, I missed every one of my people like children ripped from a mother. And it was my doing. So who did I have to blame? I've gotten better about it. I've gotten over it mostly, but here's why it's so hard to replace what I had before. Agents, in my book, are the most interesting people in the whole universe. I've never met anyone in any business endeavor that is more interesting, more sophisticated, more complicated, more messed up, more energized than great real estate agents. They're all entrepreneurs in their own right. They're crazy to be in the business. They're the bravest souls I've ever met. And they're the most interesting. I always used to say that my great agents were like racehorses. You can't just put a harness on them and expect them to run straight. They ain't going to do it, you know? And that is the beauty of the agent. They were high strung, roaring to go, insecure, tremendously insecure. And in fact, I used to know which of my agents on any given year were going to be my top agents based on how quickly they came into the office and how insecure they were, that they were never going to have another good year once they came in January. I'll never have it again. I'll never have it again. And I knew those agents would make more money. Absolutely. The more insecure an agent is, the more talented they are. And I learned to trust that very much. But yes, I'm sad you asked that because now you're making me feel badly all over again.
I'm sorry to bring more depression into your life. I apologize. You were the first proponent of co-brokering and sharing listings. You were the first to push the internet. You were the first to push vocally for an MLS. Why do you think so many years later, New York City is the only US territory throughout the country without an MLS?
Greed got in the way, and greed is still in the way. I did that back then because I wholeheartedly believed the more open the communication, the better it was for the customer, and certainly the better it was for the seller. If things could be instantly shared in an efficient fashion, I felt we were serving the seller best. What got in the way then, and you'll have to tell me what gets in the way now because I'm not in the business anymore. But what got in the way then was sheer unadulterated greed cloaked in other reasons, but it was greed. The top agencies at the time did not want to openly share listings because it gave them their advantage being big to a smaller broker, equal-handed, and that was not acceptable. And so greed got in the way then. I'm not sure what's really in the way now. It's shocking that it's persisted, really. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly one element of the business that we're working on with NYRAC to be sure that we can be more consistent with our data. You sold your company just a few weeks after 9/11, and that was around September 27th. And I recall you sold it, I think, for $66 million to Reology, which is a massive multi-conglomerate. But I remember you speaking a few days, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after 9/11, the actual event, and you had everyone's jaw drop when you said you envisioned a market the likes of which you would never ever believe that this would be the busiest, most crazy time, and this was the ultimate buying opportunity because soon this market would implode. Do you still feel the same way today about what's happening now? Because I've heard you say some similar things recently.
Well, the reason I said it then was based on one premise, which was on the heels of 9/11 when I collected all the Corcoran Group agents at the Pierre Hotel, I believe it was, if I'm remembering well. The reason I said that, and I totally believed it, and I hope I was persuasive in bringing the whole team to my way of looking at things, is because I watched 24/7 news coverage about what had happened to New York. And the whole world, they were bleeding their hearts at us. Everyone was pained as to what we were going through. And when you have that kind of empathy, people fall in love. And I knew that as people were watching our billion-dollar PR campaign on their TV sets every single night that went on and on and on, that the whole world was going to fall in love with New York. And I based that prediction based on that simple, what I considered a fact. So I was not surprised when the market, as you said, imploded, exploded, I remember. We made up for lost time. It was unbelievable what happened to values and volume, okay? So that was then. Do we have that same situation now? Are people falling in love with New York because of the pandemic? No. It's a whole different thing, right? Are people afraid of New York because of the pandemic? Oh, yes. And will there be echoes of that? Oh, there will be. So the idea that people might want to get away from an urban environment, especially a hotbed of the virus like New York, we will see that. We'll see families, young couples, which we always have, looking at their 1,000 square foot, $1 million home in Manhattan and thinking they could get a 2,500 square foot home in the suburbs. And it will be safe for them to start a family or to move their family. Well, we've always had that. That's going to be very short term, in my opinion. It's a knee-jerk reaction to what's gone on. The minute it's safe to come out and play in New York will resume, because if there's one thing I learned about New York City as a young broker, and I continue to learn the lesson again and again and again, was New York always comes back, not as a cheerleading thing, but because somebody always wants it. The somebody changes, but somebody always wants it. I remember in the 80s, all my clients were corporate clients, and corporate America was moving out of the city. Well, guess what? A lot of them did, and then it stopped. And many more came in. I remember when the Chinese were buying like crazy and they stopped, and the Japanese came in and bought instead. The Russians came in, not just the luxury market, but markets all over the United States as well came in. And that's what I believe in. I remember deciding as a broker owner, probably 10 years into the business, that I would never, ever spend a moment worrying that New York wouldn't be in demand. It's always in demand, and powerful demand. So what's going to happen on the heels of this? We'll have the people moving out as we did after 9/11. You know, oh, it's not safe here, whatever. A lot of them move back. We'll have business resuming, and it will explode. Perhaps not the high-end market where we have a glut, but remember, we've never experienced our spring market here yet. You're going to have the spring market. Who knows when that's really going to happen? Let's say midsummer, and then you have coming right up on the heels the fall market. Let them crash. How lovely that would be. And how much business will we make up for? So, you know, it's just, if you're in the real estate agent business, you didn't get into it because you lacked courage. You got into it because you wanted to work for yourself and prove what you could do and make your own destiny. And that's what you have right here. You didn't go into the business because you were afraid of a bad time. And when you're afraid of the bad time, you do something with it. It's hard for us to all wait. We're all aggressive animals. That's what agents are. Waiting is our greatest punishment. It's like being, I have a beautiful home here. It's like being in a fancy jail. I can't wait to get out. And an agent has that personality. So I would encourage anybody there. I don't need to get carried away on this, but I would encourage everyone to get ready for what's coming. What can't you do now? What don't you have the talent to do? What skill set do you lack? What attitude adjustment do you need? How could you get a new source of that? Look at everything and get ready, because it is coming. This is going to be an amazing market. You're going to come out and make more than make up for that lost time. I could be wrong, you know, everybody's not right all the time, but that's what I predict is going to happen. Yeah.
Well, you also throw in low interest rates, very low interest rates, $8 trillion worth of stimulus. And never in the history of New York have we had the market shut down completely for 3 months. That's never, ever happened. So how that impacts pent-up demand, I think, will be very important too. Mm-hmm. Tell me, the era of the independent, smaller brokerage, especially now, is that dying? And would an event like this really fuel that even further? I remember when Corcoran was a smaller company, bought out by a big conglomerate, and then they bought out Sunshine, and then City Habitats merged, and there've been all these acquisitions and mergers. Is that the future, or is there space in this world for smaller independents?
Well, there's always mergers, there's always acquisitions, because the broker owners get old and they need an exit strategy. That's a necessity. But if you're asking me, can the little broker survive? Are those days over? Can you compete as a little broker? I can tell you what everybody told me for the first 15 years in business. I would go nowhere. I was the littlest broker. I was one person, right? Nothing has changed. I'll tell you what the little broker has over the big firm, a number of things. I'm very much in that camp, and I worried more about Corcoran Group as we grew. I was more worried that we would act like a big brokerage firm, and that gets dangerous, right? What a big brokerage firm has is money, but what they don't do as readily as a little brokerage firm is spend it. When things get tough, big brokerage firm cut funding fast. It's not an emotional decision, it's a business decision. Get a principal owner who loves their people and is trying to keep afloat. They will kill to keep their business afloat. And that's what they have, passion. And what they also have is creativity. A little guy could turn fast, think of a new idea, get it out on Monday. A big brokerage firm can't be quite equipped to do that as well. So no, there's always room for a little brokerage firm. And if you think about it, every one of us is a little brokerage firm. Look at the difference between the top broker in a large firm and the lowest broker, like night and day. Well, what makes a difference? It's that individual, and the same is true of a brokerage firm. It's all comes down to the individual.
Great. I do think NYRAC really celebrates the fact that agents are small businesses. And I think you've perfectly phrased that again, that individuals and teams really do act as these small companies under umbrellas, sometimes of larger companies. How important is data today compared to, say, 20 years ago? Back then, there was more gut instinct and kind of insider intelligence. But today, things seem to be so obsessed with data and dollars per square foot. How important is that really today, in your opinion?
It's less important today because there's so much of it and it's so accessible. You want data, you keep yourself busy from here to kingdom come, looking and analyzing data. You know, what's important even more now is the warmer side of sales. I mean, data is cold, it's left brain, it's meant to give information, and it does. But it's how you use the information. It's how you could reassure the customer, how you can get them comfortable with the deal, the pricing, how persuasive you can be. That's what counts. Counts more than ever. People are data nuts, frankly. And no, it's the individual broker. The more persuasive you are as a salesman, the more powerful you are. Data is only a tool you use to convince the left brain investment banker that you're on top of your game. You use it. It's not a substitute for the agent, or it doesn't even warm up to that.
I do think, though, we all believe that there's probably too much data, too much information out there, and maybe it's the agent's role now to become the editor of all that and give the insights that in the past were just, gut insights, but maybe now data-fueled insights are probably more valuable to the clientele. Recently, you spoke rather skeptically about these virtual tours and virtual open houses, and you really truly seem to believe still in the physical visit of a property. Can you speak to that at all?
It depends on what real estate you're speaking about. I think at that time, if I'm remembering what you're referencing, I believe people will rent apartments, they already are, without seeing the home. You can size it up pretty well. I think it's much more difficult for people to commit to a high price or even medium priced primary home, not physically seeing it. We've been selling condominiums or floor plans and various sales techniques for years. So if someone's buying their 4th or 5th luxury home, it's different. But if you're putting your hard-earned cash and you have one home, especially if it's your first one, people really need to walk the space. I don't think, no matter what tools we have out there currently, it's going to be a substitute of actually physically walking the space. I still think it's key.
It's interesting that Yoko Ono and John Lennon bought their home in Palm Beach and never toured it before buying it. They always had sent someone in to take Polaroids. I just read that.
Polaroids.
Polaroid. What is a Polaroid?
Yeah.
It's come and gone. So you've always been ahead of trends, Barbara. What trends do you see coming in the future? What's in your crystal ball?
I don't have a lot in my crystal ball, honestly. But one thing that I can envision happening fairly soon, it's just not out there yet, but I can't imagine why it wouldn't be, is virtual reality. Now that would be a game changer. That would change the game to the degree that the internet has changed the game for real estate agents. If instead of having someone show you the different spaces, if you were the camera inside the apartment and walked around, there are a lot of virtual reality places here in the city that do gamemanships and invent things for some of the larger companies. I remember about a year ago, I took my daughter's class down I got in and the kids put the headsets on, and I was blown away walking through a castle in England because I could see my fingers scratching the chips. It was no different. It was like an exaggerated walking through the premises. And I remember going, oh, holy crap, if this could be brought into real estate. I almost went out and tried to look for an investment so I could do it, but then I realized I didn't have the time. Yeah, I think that would change the game. And I can't imagine with that moving so fast in the technology space that that's going to be very far away.
And I'd imagine the quality of that is critical, because we've seen many variations of it. And I feel like some of these virtual open houses that I've attended, I feel for the first time I know what it's like walking through an open house drunk. Some of them are a little loopy and crazy. I think the quality will drive the success of that.
Yes, I must say the tour that I took, because it was so on the edge, I could not tell the difference. I wasn't dizzy, and it was mind-blowing. Yeah.
Tell me, where do you see real estate opportunities right now? Is it in Manhattan? Is it in other parts of the country? Is it close to Manhattan? Where would you say there are great buys?
Are you speaking about from an investor view or a user?
Yes.
Investment.
Yes.
I've invested a lot of money in New York City, and I've continued to buy income-producing properties. I probably shouldn't say this to this group, but I totally stopped the moment all the rules changed, which was roughly about 5-6 months ago. There's so many restrictions now. We have a new form of rent control. I could get great deals buying properties in New York. People are calling me back that wouldn't return the call because they thought my bids were too low. Now they're calling me back. But for an investor in New York City, it's very difficult right now. You improve your property, you can't get it back through rent. I don't like that. I like to take care of my properties, make them shine, you know. There's so much restriction. I do not believe it's the kind of environment where savvy investors are in New York City. I've been doing a lot of buying, interestingly enough, in a town called Pittsburgh. Interestingly enough, not seeing the properties, but my son's in the business and he sees the properties. I can see the numbers, and the numbers are mind-boggling. And there are many, many places like that, but that's where I'm choosing because it's close enough where it doesn't scare me too much, but the numbers are phenomenal without rent control, with a friendly government, with new industry moving in, and a highly educated workforce. All the kind of landmarks that brought New York greatness is kind of happening there. So it's like the good old days, you know, and that's where I am, yeah.
So government really does get in the way of investment property in Manhattan.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we need a new mayor. I'm not going to touch the subject. Maybe you should run for mayor.
Oh, definitely not.
Barbara, please, you have my vote. You are the star of you are the star of a hugely successful television show.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone around the world has fallen in love with you because what you deliver to the world is so intelligent and entertaining at the same time, but there's substance to it. How do you feel about the real estate reality shows? Because a lot of the agents feel like, okay, that's great for the agents in the show, but it makes us agents look like buffoons. How do you feel about them?
Well, I think you just said it, Leonard. It's a fast way to fame if you're the agent on the show. Clearly a fast way to fame. People will assume you're brilliant whether you are or not. And if you've got a good producer, you look brilliant, okay? It's a fast way to fame, and that, of course, fame makes money. So if you want to make money fast, get your gig on a real estate show. I remember the first year on Shark Tank, people treated me like I was a genius in business, on any business. Ice cream business, oil business, they assumed I knew everything only because I was on a network TV show. So that fame brought me great recognition and false confidence. For the other agents who don't have the TV show, don't have the producers, aren't being asked to sign autographs, so it is. If you want that kind of stuff, get on a show. I don't know how else to answer it.
And on Shark Tank, for instance, you partner with other investors. It seems like you love to collaborate and partner. Tell me a little bit more about this and your time on Shark Tank and what you've learned from that.
I've learned not to invest with other sharks for the most part, quite honestly, because I started out there, a big happy family, and we are indeed. We're so fond of each other. But I found that deals don't close fast. Sometimes they don't close at all. They're complicated, getting an appointment set up with all these big egos, everybody's opinion being heard. It's like anything where you don't have a boss. The boss in the end's got to call the shot, and I believe in that. I do continue to partner with Mark Cuban because he has a style of quickly working the way I do. Boom, 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 done. And so he's very comfortable for me to partner with. And I just like to show off and say, Mark, my partner. You know, that kind of thing. Has a little charisma to it. Okay. But for the most part, I like to make my deals on my own. It's just easier. That's all. Yeah.
Got it. And real estate agents are independent contractors, but so often they aren't really treated that independently by some of their brokerages. How do you feel about brokerages treating their agents as employees versus them actually being businesses and individual entities that just exist under the umbrella of a brokerage? How do you strike that balance?
I'm not sure, Leonard, you'd have to tell me, in what way do they treat people as employees?
Well, sometimes they try to dictate probably more than they should, or maybe they have legal requirements of their agents that you wouldn't expect as an individual business. Maybe it could be equated to being a boutique within a mall, and the mall becomes too dictatorial and controlling and kind of claims ownership of you where they really don't.
Okay, well, you could get wrapped up in a lot of your underwear worrying about that. Okay, probably not to really gain anything for yourself. If they're legal requirements, which you allude to, legal requirements are legal requirements, so you have no say in that. Okay. If it's a sense that you are an independent agent, you're being told what to do beyond legal requirements, I say look to your sales records. Whatever Carrie Chiang came in and demanded, I gave her. Sharon Bound, same thing. Robbie Brown, same thing. Top agents walk in my office, whatever you want. Realize your negotiating position. Really realize your negotiating position, get what you want. No one has any business telling you how to do your trade. You're an agent, all the risk is on your back, or most of it is more than the company, and you deserve to get what you need. But if it's a legal requirement, you just have to roll along with it. Those are the pains in the neck things in life. You just don't give it any thought. Waste of time.
Good point. What are the common traits of super successful agents? You have met so many agents in your past career, but now in your new role as an investor, you meet hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs, which agents really are. What would you say are common traits that you see amongst all of these people, the successful ones?
Well, I like the parallel you're drawing because, and you're smart to be able to size that up. It took me 3 years to realize that on Shark Tank. I spent 3 years on Shark Tank totally insecure and frankly calling my mother for reassurance, as old as I was, okay? And she used to say, picture your dad and me on your shoulders cheering you on. Believe me, I would always look to my shoulders the first 3 seasons. But about the 3rd season, I don't remember which entrepreneur I was in, one entrepreneur walked in to the Shark Tank set, and that agent reminded me of Sharon Bound. I kept like thinking, wait, is this Sharon Bound? Looked nothing like Sharon Bound, but the answers, the way the entrepreneur thought, I thought, it's like Sharon Bound. And on that one day, I said, if she's like Sharon Bound, she's going to make money. And I put my money down. And you know what? She was my first big hit after 3 years. And after that, I just hire agents. I pretend I'm back at the Corcoran group trying to decide if I'm going to hire someone or not. And if they remind me of a great agent in the most important ways, I'm all in, and I try to get as much of the shares as I can get my greedy little hands on. But what are the traits that I'm looking for in my entrepreneurs on Shark Tank that are the same traits that I'm looking forward for in my agents hiring through the years when you don't have a track record to lean on? Remember, when I hired most of my superstars, I didn't have a track record to lean on. I was like, I bet they're going to be good. And the traits that I always saw: quick, competitiveness. What do I see in my best Shark Tank businesses? Competitiveness. They're competitive people, all right? Second, they know how to take a hit. And this is how a top entrepreneur and a top agent takes a hit the same way. They take less time feeling sorry for themselves. They feel it. They're up at bat a lot more than the next guy. But when they take the hit, they don't give themselves the luxury to feel sorry for themselves. When my entrepreneurs on Shark Tank have something go awry and they start blaming on the next guy or so, oh, the manufacturer didn't do this or the shipper, blah, blah, blah. I know I'm going to lose my money. They're never going to be great. Great agents don't feel sorry for themselves. Great agents are competitive by nature, and great agents are all insecure. I go out of my way to invest in businesses on Shark Tank when I can unearth something insecure. My father said I'd be nothing. My mother did this. This guy did this. If they're working around some old crap, I know I'm going to make money, and I jump right in. That's what I do.
I love that answer, by the way. It's great.
A little long.
Well, Barbara, you know, I have to bring up this subject, and I know this is a delicate subject to bring up with a lady, but I know you're a tough lady. You just pretty recently celebrated your 70th birthday in the form of a funeral because you wanted to hear what everyone had to say about you, which I think is just divine.
Let me interrupt you with one thing. As you said that 71st birthday, your black damn cat walked behind you, and I hope that's not a bad sign for me.
She always gets in the way of everything. I apologize.
Oh my God, this is scary. Go ahead.
But I have to say, you are the youngest 70-something I know on the planet. Not only do you look amazing, and I have to say, you look amazing. On a Zoom call, you get a 12 out of 10.
Oh, really? You're a schmoozer. You always have been. Go ahead. Keep it coming.
And I have a bridge to sell to you. But Barbara, how do you keep your mind so young and agile? What is it about you that keeps you so, you sound younger than most 30-year-olds I speak to.
Well, Leonard, I wish I could believe every word. Let's just say I take half of it, okay? First of all, I've had 2 facelifts. It's not just a mindset. I've had 2 facelifts, okay?
Thank you.
First at 40 and one at 60. And I actually had another one scheduled, but I had a cast lift because it's not considered necessary. Oh, well. So that's number 1. That counts, physically how you look. I have my mother's genes. She had 10 children. Like most people have rabbits. She never wore pregnancy clothes. She was just in great shape, never sat down. And I have her gene, her energy, her gene. Energy makes people look youthful, even if their skin looks terrible, right? Yeah, and you know what keeps you young like anybody? It's eagerness to see what's around the corner. Not every single day, but most days I can't wait to put my feet on the floor to see what's out there. And that keeps you looking up and forward, right? Yeah, so yeah, that's it. I guess that's the answer.
That's
repeat all the compliments again. I want to make sure I heard every one carefully.
Well, just for your sake, we've recorded this so you can play it again. And
okay.
That's going to be my birthday present to you.
Okay, good.
Barbara, we have some questions from the audience, and if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to ask some of these. First and foremost, Jenna McKay actually asks, how do we shape our day for success? How do we politely decline late night calls as an agent?
You know, as an agent, you set your own parameters. You build your own fences. If you have a problem with people draining you too much, it's your own fault. I know that sounds cold. Great agents could work 24 hours a day and never get their work done. So I'm a proponent, and I'm the same way. I could work 24 hours a day. My mind's always going. I always have something I got to work on. You need to set barriers for yourself. I think it's smart to set the expectation with your customers as to how you work. It's not arrogant. I used to encourage, when we had answering machines, my top agents say, I'll be checking my answering machines at 1 o'clock and again at 6. If it's urgent, if they had an assistant, call my assistant. When they didn't have an assistant, they said, leave the message here. And you know what? People got in the habit of expecting to hear from them at 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock versus all through the day. I had called some agent in New York for some business, a industrial agent, and I really had to respect the individual immediately because his answering machine went something like, what was it? And then he had a messaging that came back exactly the same. It was something like, I'll be checking my machine not till 8 tomorrow morning, but I'll get right to you first thing in the morning. And I thought, good for him. He's a cocky son of a bitch. But I wanted to do business with him. It wasn't arrogant. He had a warm voice. I think you have to set your expectations. You can do your business by the fraction of an inch, by the fraction of the second, and you can busy yourself forever, but it does not mean you're productive. If you take control of your time, you could become productive and put your priorities straight. But most people, their priorities are based on when the request comes in. Not a good idea. I never pay attention to that. I go through my list first thing in the day, usually the day before, and think, what are my A's, B's, and C's? I take care of my A's first. I sometimes get to my B's. I ignore my C's. They roll over and roll over and roll over. I don't care how much people want to talk to me because I know what my A's are. You really have to take control of how you spend your time if you hope to become who you dream about being. I don't know any other way to do it.
Love that. Another question here from Justin Duffy. With the force of companies like StreetEasy and Redfin trying to diminish the value of real estate agents on one side and the need for professional advice and guidance in such uncertain times on the other, how will our role as agents continue to change and evolve?
Well, if you're a great agent and you want to get better, which should be what we all aspire to, you have to get better with your connection to your customer, your client, and be more persuasive. It has nothing to do with StreetEasy. I know StreetEasy, I think their model, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not day-to-day in the trade, I think it's almost sell the access to the listing if somebody's willing to buy the space. So they're not selling your listing, but they're selling you as the agent. The customer doesn't realize you're not the agent. They think they're getting the agent. Oh, surprise, okay. So that's like a kind of a bait and switch kind of a routine, right? Not so good. But you know what? You can't worry about that. You know what you worry about? How strong you are when you're having that conversation with your client. How much you're on top of your game. Because that will never change. The one thing that we've never lost in our economy, ever since it was born, however many years that goes back, is the need for a salesman. There's a salesman in every trade. Don't you dare think for a minute that anything can replace the touch of the salesman. It's not just about opening doors and being nice. No, it's about being persuasive and being on top of your game. When you're on top of your game and you speak, people listen to you. It's just the way it is. They could feel your confidence and they want to go along because people really want their problem solved for them. And buying a home's a big deal, a big deal. And so the power of the agent will never change. It's always the main game, but you just have to constantly make sure you're on top of your game.
I also think at this time, the human element of home has been magnified so dramatically. Yes, we're on a Zoom call, but here you are on a Zoom call in your home. It's actually significantly more personal than it would have been 2-3 months ago.
Definitely. And I'll tell you one thing, I believe I am going to build here in my apartment a his and her office. I don't have an office. I have a great bedroom and a guest room, and I don't want to give either of those up. I'll probably take my husband's room. That's what I'll probably do and throw him out. What the heck? He's a nice guy.
Maybe you could throw him out with my cat, Joan, but she's heading out the door too.
I'm happy she's out the door. I don't want to see that black cat again.
Good news, she's not black. It's just the lighting here is horrible. You're safe.
Better.
She just looks like, she's got a horrible coat. She's the ugliest thing on the planet, but I love her dearly. Here is a question from Edwin Nazario. I wonder what's your view on the market changes that would happen due to the COVID-19 crisis on the most urban cities? Do you think that people migration to suburban and rural places will be significant due to the New York from home availability and huge price differences between city and suburban properties price tags? I think we've kind of answered that question already, wouldn't you?
But let me say to Edward, he's totally outpsyched himself. If he keeps that headset, it's over. He might as well switch to another business, honestly. Yeah, we'll have a knee-jerk reaction of people migrating out. We always do in troubled times. But it's short term. The real question where you should keep your eye on is who's migrating in? How do I get my hands on them? Yeah, you can't have that headset. You self-defeat yourself.
It's an interesting topic you bring up there, because the people who are going to probably look at the suburbs now were possibly interested in it before for larger space. And the people who own the large homes in the suburbs have had a great difficulty selling them, dying to get back to the city. So I do think one has to look at this, the circle of life, and I'm not going to sing it, but I do think there's a circle of life happening between city and suburbs, and it's something that's always going to happen. It just has a little bit of an acceleration every now and then.
I would agree with you. And Leonard, you know, from everything I hear, again, I could be inaccurate on this because my information is hearsay, which is always dangerous. But I think your greatest shortage of listings and your highest appreciation are on the smaller units, have been before the pandemic hit. And so if we have a surplus of those units short term or even longer term, we really need them. So that's not so bad, you know, not so bad.
Some advice. What is your advice for helping people who might feel that they're a little bit down or lost in the process of waiting for this reopening? New Yorkers, very difficult to contain. New York agents contained in a small apartment, impossible, especially when the energy to do things that are marketing are not here. This is from Deanna Corey, who we do have to thank specifically. Without Deanna, Barbara might not be here right now. So thanks to Deanna.
Well, no thanks to Diana. That's a hard question. So let me take a stab at it. First of all, everybody's feeling that way. If you have blood in your veins, everybody's frustrated. Somehow I feel like we went into about a week ago, maybe this past Monday. I don't know, for me, for most of my friends I'm in touch with, we felt the weight of like, my God, when is it gonna end? Monday's the worst day of the week, every week during the pandemic, because it's like, we're gonna go through another week. It starts getting better about Wednesday, right? A little bit better. I think you have to realize that this is a normal reaction and probably a healthy reaction to feel that way. But what you also have to realize is that the gift we have right now is the gift of time. Never before have we had our own time to fill as we choose. And how I'm deciding to choose to fill it right now is give the time to my family until I can't stand it anymore. And then the next thing, or the thing I'm doing, probably spending much more time on, is trying to figure out how to reinvent my business, trying all new things, collaborating with my team, brainstorming like crazy. What if we do this? What if we do that? What if we do? Throwing so much at the wall. Now we have the time to resize ourselves, to figure out where we want to go. And if your attitude isn't 150%, hey, yeah, I'm really happy, that's human. All you need is to have those spaces where you do get on your game and start focusing. You're going to fall on. It's like being on the wagon, I guess. You're going to fall on, you're going to fall off. But as long as you get back on and say, I'm going to get there, you're going to succeed tremendously. And also take reassurance that you're in New York, that you're in New York City. Okay, that is, remember, that's what gave me many nights of sleeping well my whole career. When I was in hock, didn't know how I was going to be, and I said, go to bed saying, at least I'm in New York. Knowing New York always comes back, but you need to take advantage of the time you have right now. It will never happen again until we have the next crisis.
Well, I do think you bring up a very important topic. We need to remind ourselves and our sphere of influence what we have in New York City. It really, truly is unlike any other place on earth. And it's our role now to message that to the world.
And perhaps right now, Leonard, people won't believe you, but they will in very short order. And remember, at the core of what New York has, more than the wealth, the stock market, and everything else, it's such a talent pool. Everybody wants to have a little, everybody still dreams about moving to New York. Come on, don't worry about New York.
When things become a little bit more normal again and parents are not homeschooling, because this has been exceedingly stressful for a lot of parents who've had to get the balance of, number one, keeping their own sanity, keeping their business going, and taking care of kids and schooling the kids. This has been exhausting. But when the dust settles, how in the past did you manage to balance life with your family, with your kids, and business, running a company? That must be very, very difficult. What are some tips maybe you could give agents who are watching this as to how they could learn from you?
Well, I learned to chunk my time so that I had family time and work time, and never the two would mix. My kids, from the time they were probably could talk well, knew not to dare call me at work. They wouldn't. I'd kill them. My husband used to pretend he was in New York Times to get through to me. It's, I'm at work, I'm at work. If I had a great nanny at home, I had great secretaries, they could take the call. If, of course, if I had to take my child to the hospital, which never happened, thank God, I would definitely leave my work, but that's what it would take, all right? Particularly for women, women feel guilty if they work too much. They feel guilty if they mother too much. And so I was able to get as comfortable as I guess you can with a little bit of guilt nonetheless by chunking my time and making clear barriers. A small detail I started doing about 5 years ago, which helped me tremendously, is I take my phone out of my purse when I walk in, I plug it in the common hall I share with my neighbor. And I don't go back out for it until the kids, well, then I still had 2 at home, until the family was taken care of and I knew it was my work time, bang, I grab that phone and get going again. Having that phone in your sphere of influence and just checking your emails before you went to bed was killing me, because I'm a neatness nut. I gotta take care of everything before I could sleep, and then I was too wired to sleep. And so I've learned to chunk the time. What I'm doing right now, which is very helpful, because I like a clean house, is I chunk my time into thirds. I chunk it into the beginning of the day. I clean my house. I mop, I broom, I vacuum. I have a I take a third of my house and I clean it every morning. And then I do my exercise, and then I do my work all day until Kate's through with her homeschooling at 3:15. And then I'm back with my family. So I just chunk, chunk, chunk.
So now I have a very tough question for you, Barbara.
I doubt that, Leonard.
This is the toughest one of the entire.
I doubt that, Leonard.
It's tough. You are really, really close to Mark Cuban, and someone has asked, you're that close to him. What do you know about his presidential aspirations?
I know what he says all the time. He was going to run for president last time. He was going to run for president this time. Now I think he's going to run for president maybe the next time, all right? But I'll tell you what I have heard, which was from Mark Cuban. Haven't decided yet. Haven't decided yet. Haven't decided yet. I was interviewing him on a podcast, Business Unusual. Was it yesterday or the day before? And when I asked him that question, which everybody asked, I can't hear you, can't hear you. And he disconnected me, son of a gun. Okay. But I'll tell you who I do believe, his wife. And when I went to his 60th birthday about 6 months ago in Dallas, the person I most wanted to see was Mark's wife. And I said to her, are you going to let Mark run for president? She said, absolutely not. And I believe her. And that's what I think the real answer is.
So we have the answer. You gave us the perfect answer.
Yeah.
One last question for you. Teams have been a very, very growing aspect of real estate agents' lives in the last 10 years, I would say. And you lead so many teams. What is some advice you would provide to a team or team leader or team member that would be helpful to them in this environment and a regular environment?
Well, it's always important to build a team if you want to be somebody. You can't build yourself big unless you have people to build on, right? 2 things come to mind. If you don't have a team, for those people who are powerhouse brokers and don't have a team, the hardest person to hire in your entire life will be your first person that's going to support you. It was scary. I remember for every one of my top agents, me insisting they hire help, and I paid for it. And the biggest fear was, what are they going to do? And I kept saying, when you hire them, you'll find out what they're going to do. And they never went back. Before you, my best brokers had 4 or 5-man teams. I don't know how many people are in Deanna Corey's team at this juncture. It was huge when I sold the business, probably much larger now. Okay. So the first person you got to get over. The second thing about hiring a team member, and it got in my way building the Corcoran group. I wasn't building fast enough to outperform my competitors, and I wanted to be bigger and better than everybody until one day I realized if I was going to delegate a real responsibility that I thought I was great at, hiring, marketing, advertising, all the gifts I thought I had, and I couldn't find the right person to delegate it to because they weren't good enough. Finally, one day I realized 80% is good enough. Once I knew 80% was good enough, I became the best delegator I knew. You got this, you got that, you got that. Because you know how hard you work as a principal lead broker in doing what you do perfectly, as best you possibly can do. And you can't expect someone to own that if you hire them to do it. But 80% is a phenomenal person. And that's more than sufficient for you to turn your back on it, leave it alone, and keep going up. That's the most important thing I learned.
Well, I have a little saying that I use. I call it 80% is Grady%, because everyone is seeking perfection in this world, and it really doesn't exist. And the time people spend attempting to get perfection or achieve perfection seems like it wastes so many other opportunities.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with you. But I want to ask you a question now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. How long did it take you to have that beautiful, perfect accent?
Well, I went to the same school you did for fashion, and I learned they did fashion in one side and accents in the other. And it came within a matter of hours. I remember when you talk about buying your first red coat at Bergdorf, I went to Bergdorf to the other department, and I said, fake British accents, and here it is.
Well, I went to the wrong classroom because I came back with a New Jersey accent.
I love the accent. I've always wanted an American accent, by the way, so I'm jealous. Just so you.
Don't be. It's a great asset. A great asset. And ask any American, they will tell you that. Yeah.
Barbara, it has been such a delight spending time with you. I feel like we've been so privileged to spend this afternoon in Barbara's penthouse in Manhattan and shared so much wisdom with us. I cannot thank you enough, and I thank you on behalf of all the members of NYRAC for spending this time with us and teaching us so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you to the NYRAC members for coming, giving me their time back. Okay.
Thank you.
Pleasure.